It is a hot Saturday evening, but it's not like any other hot Saturday evening because today I'm finally doing an update video on the sub. So it's all put together here for your viewing pleasure. And I haven't said anything about it since saying I wanted to lower the CG and make it drive better and explore a bunch of ideas I had. So I've explored most of these ideas. I got the CG considerably lower, and the car is amazing to drive. It's flippin' insane how good this car is. Max Verstappen says he hates front-wheel drive cars. It's like anti-driving. He hasn't driven a front-wheel drive car that has reverse wheel stagger, low CG, high horsepower, single seat. He's only probably driven BTCC type cars, which are still econo boxes that are 1,300 kilos or more, or whatever. I don't care what he says. He doesn't do what I do. He doesn't design cars. So this is it. From the exterior, it looks about the same as it did, except there's no stickers on it. But I've added a few aero devices like this behind the front wheel, just to help with extraction from the front wheel and to clean up the air going down the side of the car. Because before it would kind of puke out of there and go down the side of the car in an unclean way. Now it comes out cleanly from behind the front wheel, and then inside here is actually a pocket where it can actually draw air from the top side of the floor, so it can actually scavenge air from the splitter. So a lot of race cars have this, but I'm just trying to implement it to this. And then I also want to build a hull in front of the flat floor to make it better, so that the floor actually sucks air from the sides instead of from the front, because the splitter strips a lot of the energy out of the air, and then the flat floor has to re-energize it. Well, the diffuser has to re-energize all the air going under the flat floor, which actually causes some drag. So it's better if you take the air off the splitter and just dump it out the sides, and then have fresh air going in for the rest of the flat floor and diffuser from the sides. Because now, instead of the car swallowing up the air in the width of the splitter, it actually swallows the width of it plus some, because that's going in to the sides of the car. So it's a bit of crude aerodynamic teaching there, but that's what I'm trying to get it to do. So the other side's a bit melted because I didn't gold foil tape it, and I don't think it would have saved it. I gotta redo some of it in aluminum. So again, this is why I don't talk. I'd just rather do things and then you see it done and finished. But this side is a lot more open and clean because it has not melted at all yet. So there's that. From the outside, nothing in the front has really changed except wheel alignment and bump steer. Running like more spacers on the tie rod to fix bump steer because there's more camber, and then the whole arc of the suspension changes. So more camber because, again, with the solid lock diff, it turns in better when the wheel is on an angle, and then once you turn in, the weight comes off of it and it just turns in better and has more mid-corner grip. So there's that. The rear, I did something interesting. The whole back end of the car is actually wider now. So if you notice, I don't know, you can kind of see it there. The whole curvature of this fender is way more aggressive than a factory car. So it's actually pulled out almost an inch, and then it has a 20 mil spacer in the back. So you can see the stitchings inside here. So I literally just cut the fender there and then cut it from whatever was supporting it underneath and just pulled it out. So the whole back end of the car is nice and wide, like, I don't know, not like a Porsche, but you know, it's got hips now. That's what I'm trying to say. It's got hips. Other than that, aesthetically, it's more or less the same. I painted the doors black. It was a very early on practice carbon fiber piece that didn't really infuse properly, so it's kind of ugly. So whatever, not worried about that. Of course, in efforts to lower the CG, this thing has a nice, beautiful split weave carbon fiber roof that's paper thin upon my request. So that was done a while ago. It's just I didn't really talk about it. I showed it in that video at Spage Sport where we actually made the stuff. So now the car looks insane. It's got split weave splitter, split weave hood, split weave roof, and split weave wing. So from top view, this whole car is like herringbone, like a Pagani or something. So it's pretty cool. Just an old Saab, right? There's still some stuff I have to finish. Like, again, from pulling the fenders out, I had to cut some things up, and this car does have a bit of rust. So I gotta finish these side skirts and whatnot before I go to Motorsports, because at the high speeds the aero really matters. At Kyoga it's not too bad, the average speed is kind of low. And then there's not much else I could say from the outside. The whole car actually sits lower as well. You can't really tell, but I actually brought the splitter up because the whole car is lower. So again, lowered CG of the chassis, and then getting the car to sit lower on top of that is just, it's just phenomenal. It's very good. Interior wise, the car is still very ugly in my opinion. I added a proper dash bar that actually ties into the front strut towers, and didn't paint it, didn't do anything to it, and also stripped up paint from the floor, didn't do anything. Added another bar across the floor of the car. I'll show you a bit better in a sec. But again, the idea was just to, you know, get all this stuff mostly done, the main stuff done, and then just slap it together and go testing. So again, there's a fuel pressure gauge just thrown in there because I had a clogged fuel filter and I need to check it. So it's all just ugly test stuff, right? And then the grounds are held on with hose clamps, the wires all over the place, whatever. But aside from how it looks, the seat has been moved over, like I said in that video. But anyway, the seat is very close to the middle. Like, it is so nice, it feels amazing being closer to the middle of the car. And yeah, it's basically in the center tunnel of the car. So don't mind a lot of this wiring too, because again, I'm not proud of it. It's just there to test the car, and then I'll pull this stuff out and redo it and make it look nice once it's time to do so. So other than adding this bar, like I said, I added a bar across the floor. That's just to stiffen the floor of the car and the chassis, because again, on that CG thing, I have weights mounted in the floor. So on top of reducing weight on the top, I added weight to the bottom. So I'm not telling you how much, that's a secret. That might be a secret I might cover in a members only video or something, because I don't want people to know that stuff. I don't even want proper race teams to know that stuff. Like, why should I tell you? You know what I'm saying? Maybe I like you, maybe I don't. Maybe I'll do it for the shareholders, who knows. But anyway, all this stuff is sort of temporarily mounted, but the cage is basically updated to what I want it to be. I added gussets up top, some supports. These gussets I actually cut out because they were too heavy, and they were really flimsy, hot rolled, mild steel, and I really didn't like it. So these are stiffer and they're much lighter. It's kind of how they do it on Porsches, on GT3 cars. Also with the seat is lower, and I've built a sweet little back brace, so the seat is actually tied in to the chassis so I can feel everything. And then on top of feeling everything there, some of the weights are tied into the seat mounts that are in the tunnel there. So I'm just tied to the mass of this car. I'm like the second or third heaviest mass in this car now. Maybe I'm giving a bit too much away. So I need to be tied in with the other masses to actually drive this thing properly. So other than that, fuel cell's been moved. I talked about that before. It used to be in the trunk area where you see that aluminum. Now it's here because it was way too high before. It was like 10 inches, 11 inches higher, and it was too far back, so no good. Oil tank is the same. Yeah, power steering pump is the same. Everything else is pretty much the same. Don't mind the oil on the side of the car because I overfilled it a bit, but the C pillar is actually gone, or the B.5, I guess you could call it, unless you want to call this the D pillar. So again, there's a pillar that runs in front of that third window, so cut that out as well for weight reduction. The trunk cross support is also gone, where the trunk latch used to go. I don't know why the car still had that before. Because of removing that, the whole rear section is kind of held together on a will and a prayer. So please, nobody rear end this car, because It's not meant for rear impacts, it's for time attack. So I think I took out 10 pounds removing that cross brace, and then I was able to keep it stiff by using the wing mounts and some pieces of aluminum and whatnot. You can see again, you can see the ground through there. It's not totally aesthetically finished, but that's basically how it's held together. Just barely, which is the way it should be, because you don't want too much race car. You're just lugging around unnecessary weight, which is nonsense. Now let's talk about necessary weight. If you look on top of the diffuser, there's dumbbells. Those are the only weights you can actually see with your eyes on this car, so which is why I'm showing you them. Maybe you can guess how much that is, maybe not, but those are mounted just ahead of the rear tire, simply because that's where I want it to be to get the car to handle the way it should. A lot of people would disagree about putting weight in the back of a front-wheel drive car, but you got to realize a front-wheel drive car is only front-wheel drive when you're on the throttle. When you're off the throttle, it's still a four-wheeled car that needs grip in the rear. So it helps with braking. I can use more rear brakes. I can get the car to rotate better under its own mass instead of just making the car slide past its slip angle in the back. The car stays flatter under braking. I think I already said that basically, but it just improves the feel. Like, you can actually get heat in the rear tires, which is miraculous on a front-wheel drive car. So important stuff that people overlook. But again, it's not like you should just add random weights to the back of a car. You should add it very low down to the ground to get the CG nice and low, like the way a differential would be in a car that's four-wheel drive or rear-wheel drive and whatnot. It's not a coincidence that those cars handle properly, because they have mass where it should be, basically. So adding mass to a car in this sort of position, or centering the mass to that location, really helps with rotation, because rotation is dependent on what the rear tire is doing. Even on a front-wheel drive car, it doesn't matter. That's why go-karts, supercars, whatever, they have the seat and the engine mounted where it is, because you need rotational feel of a car to actually go fast in it. And then if that weight is low to the ground, you can react to it instantly, because again, when the center of mass is way higher than the contact patches of the car, you've probably felt this sensation in your own track car. You get into a slide and it takes you like half a second to realize the car is even sliding. It's just because of the way the car loads up with that high up mass. When the car actually unloads, it feels like it picks up grip, but it doesn't, because of the car rolling and pitching on the contact patches. But anyway, I'm just rambling now. Anyway, without giving too much away, you want some weight in the back of a car, and if you put weight in, you want it low. It's that simple. So other than that, to actually accommodate all this weight, spring rate in the rear is a bit different, because I took out the spring pads that were above the rear spring. So even though it was a 1,500 pound spring before, now it's actually 1,500 pound because it doesn't have the rubber it's sitting on. So it's a lot stiffer in the back. Like, the car doesn't even move at all if you just try to push on it, but it does move when driving. The shocks are revalved, so it's hard to see, but you've probably seen on my Instagram, it's got, oh, there it is, it's got Schraders on all four shocks. The front ones are really hard to see, but I actually just added rebound all the way around. I calculated amount with the shims, and it's much better, and I want to tweak it more, because if you haven't gone over the edge and made it worse, you haven't really gone far enough. So as it stands, everything I've done has made the car better, which makes you want to do more, which makes you want to actually make mistakes and say, oh, that's too far. Then you actually know the limit of how far you should push rebound, compression, and spring rates and whatnot. So enough about chassis and suspension. As interesting as it is to someone like me, let's talk about engine stuff. It is boring. Well, to me it's boring because I didn't really change much. Turbo is the same, header is the same, everything else is the same. The only thing I really did was make another transmission for it and basically epoxied all the bearings in place so they don't slide in and out of their housings. And then I added a gearbox heat exchanger. So those AN fittings at the bottom, one goes into the transmission, you can see. One actually comes from a pump, which comes from a filter, which comes from the bottom of the gearbox. So what's happening here is gear oil is getting sucked out of the bottom of the gearbox, filtered, goes through a pump, and then goes through this little heat exchanger I built out of the swirl pot. So it's got tubes inside there where the coolant from the engine goes in, swirls around, and it transfers heat into the gearbox. So the reason for that is the gearbox needs to be at the right temperature because of how tightly it's shimmed. From factory, these things are made to work perfect on cold start, and then they don't get hotter than about 60 degrees Celsius, 70 degrees Celsius. But even when they get hotter than that, you don't have 700 horsepower. So the issue with this that I found is when the gearbox gets hot, the shafts get loose, or the input shaft at least gets loose, which makes the teeth separate. So I realized I could shim it stupid tight enough to where it actually binds up really bad when it's cold. So the heat exchanger's purpose is to get it up to working temperature so that the gears sit where they should and there's enough preload on the gears in operating conditions, which is very hot. You can see this temperature sticker just touched 99, so about boiling point basically. So that is the hottest the coolant really gets, and this was on a very hot day. So the gearbox will get up to that temperature, and because it's not really generating much heat, because there's no diff in there and it's a manual gearbox, it sits at that temperature of the coolant. It's been calculated that at that temperature the shaft preloads are where they should be, so it eliminates the need to cool it down every session and stick a fan on it to make sure the gearbox stays cool, because it's much easier to keep something hot in a race car rather than keep it cool. So it's easier to keep motor oil hot and use the right kind of oil for that temperature than to try to keep oil as cold as possible and use the thinnest oil possible. So that's the reason for doing stuff like that. But other than that, nothing else has changed. Also, nothing's changed that the intake keeps freaking breaking. So that's my task coming up right now. I got to repair that one more time, maybe to do another test day or two. The exhaust manifold has a bit of a leak here as well, because this stuff is old. It's been 5 years. I built these during COVID, and they crack and I repair it, crack, repair it. So it's due for new stuff, but I'm not done testing, so I'm just gonna repair it as efficiently as I can and go back testing. So yeah, that's what we got here. You might wonder, Jason, why go through all of this? Why go through all these changes? The car was sick before it was fast. The problem is the lap times are fast, yes, but I'm sitting there behind the wheel thinking, my God, this thing's a piece of shit with the way it rolls and whatever, and just cornering feel. Just because that comes from driving go-karts, which is probably the best feeling thing you can drive, because it's like bolting 4 wheels to your body. So I've been trying to approach that level of perfection with this car, and it's actually getting very close to where it needs to be. So that's why I do this, because I want it to drive a certain way regardless of the lap times, and then once it drives the way I want it and it does what I expect it to, then the lap times get even faster. So it's twofold. Things basically will just come together once I make the car feel the way I need it to feel.